What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Ruswick. I'm from Game Dev Underground, and I help people through the various struggles of their life to make games because a lot of the challenges in games are not technical. Some of them are motivational and emotional. It's funny, dude. I didn't know who you were when I was at IndieCade a couple years ago, and I met this guy named Dana, and he was part of Game Dev Underground at the time. And he was telling me, "Oh, this guy Chris DeLeon, he's awesome. He's awesome. I can't wait to go see him." And I didn't know who he was, but I was like, "All right, probably."
Aha! Yeah, Dana's in our club now. Dana's one of our Gamkedo developers as well, in addition to being in Game Dev Underground.
He commented on one of my videos like a week ago. I guess someone posted one of my videos in the Gamkedo Slack chat or something. And he was like, "Dude," and that's when it hit me. I was like, "Wait, you're the guy he was talking about 4 years ago." I was like, "Wow, okay." And then I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." But yeah, it's interesting. Small world, little world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so what I have gathered from the videos, and like I said, I didn't. Part of what took me a while to get back to your email was like I was watching a bunch of your YouTube videos to like figure out who is this guy, whatever. And like marketing background, sold the company. I'm curious to learn more about those sort of things in terms of like was it I'm assuming digital marketing.
Yeah. So it was. The way I started out is originally I was super into games, right? Like when I was in high school, super into video games. But I ended up making like software, and I wanted to make money from it. So I built this piece of software called FPSC Toolbox, which was, at the time, there was this engine called FPS Creator, which was like the first, as far as I know, it was like the first drag and drop little creator. And it was awesome. But all it was good for was dragging and dropping the existing assets. So my program allowed any artist to import all of their assets with all their settings. So they could take a gun and they could add like the rate of fire and all that and just import it in. Super simple.
Awesome.
That software, originally I sold it for $5. None of it sold. Nothing happened. And I was kind of bummed.
Which, to be fair, sounds exactly like the indie market right now, where someone makes a game, they try to sell for $5, they sell none. They're like, what am I doing wrong?
So I was like, whatever. And then the weirdest thing happened. I decided to increase the price by 500% to $30, $29.99. And I started reading some marketing books and stuff, and I tweaked the landing page and all, and then the sales just took off. Like I made a ton of money. Like that software was covering all my bills and more. And I was just like, what happened here? So I got really into marketing, and then I was visiting Los Angeles because my dad was out there. And I got this opportunity from this company he was friends with, and the guy was like, "Yeah, we need somebody to do websites and marketing for us." And I was like, "I've done that. Look at my stuff."
You've got proof.
I did it. And then so I took that, and this was a property developer that had 18 different properties, so they needed a website marketing for everything. So after doing that, then I was kind of like, well, I kind of have a marketing company now anyway, whether I like it or not. So I just started doing marketing, and then I started taking on clients, started learning all this stuff. I never lost the passion for software. So we started doing some like digital based marketing, like technology based marketing, like sales funnels, autoresponders, cool like tracking. And I built a lot of cool pieces of technology. And honestly, I just started losing passion for life at that point, because I was like, what happened to me? Like,
you kind of looked around and were like, this is not where I planned to be. This is not what I planned to be doing.
Exactly. And if you watch a lot of my videos, a lot of the videos are about a mental, emotional struggle. They're not about like technical challenges, because I was just like, I hated life at that point. So I ended up selling the company and just like going on a road trip in my Dodge Challenger. Like, I don't care where I'm going. I didn't have anywhere to go. I was just driving. And I spent about a month just driving. I went to GDC up to San Francisco. Nice. I went to like Roswell. I always wanted to go there because the aliens. Just a bunch of crazy places.
To visit the aliens.
I wanted to see where they hang out.
Finally meet them in person.
I took a selfie at the museum there. It was pretty awesome.
Awesome.
No, and then I started to get back into game development, and I had learned a lot about, because while I was doing my marketing company, I always had these like ideas of startups, and we'd always work on different ideas, and the marketing company had a lot of proprietary technology that honestly could have been its own little startups, each little piece. Right. So I learned a lot about that stuff too.
Just time-wise, contextually, was this like 2012, 2008? Just curious where these...
I sold the company in 2015. Okay. It was about the 5 years before that was kind of where all this was ramping up.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like that's basically the story. And then when I started getting back into game development, I kind of realized like I always wanted to make a game my entire life, and it's been 10 years now, and I never completed a game.
Yep.
So I was just like, what? Why did I do this? Like, what's going on? And yeah, and then Game Dev Underground, I was trying to get going since 2013, just with the mission of like making better games. So I never like forgot that piece of it. I just forgot to actually make games, I guess.
Right on. Well, and so it also sounds like then, I'd be curious to hear what would if you have any formal training background or what it's in. I'm assuming software engineering as opposed to marketing seem largely self-taught in marketing.
I'm self-taught in both. Yeah.
Self-taught in both.
I went 3.5 years in college for game simulation programming, but it was probably one of the worst experiences I've had.
Oh no.
It didn't teach me anything at all.
Right.
Learned more from Google than I ever learned from that. So yeah, I mean, everything I've learned has been pretty much Google courses, kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, books and that's why like a lot of the stuff that I talk about on the YouTube channel is not like here's in Unity how to build an FPS. It's like, here's what to do if you're staring at your computer and don't know where to start.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think a lot of the challenges people run into is much closer to some developer's equivalent of writer's block than it is anything to do with
pretty much, yeah.
They're not stuck on solving an algorithm. If you give them a CS assignment, they can crack it and solve it and be like, here's our runtime, totally. I've optimized it, whatever. That's not the problem.
Yeah. And like I learned PHP line by line by knowing what I wanted to make and Googling every line as I did it, right? Like For me, there was never a technical challenge there. I was always able to figure everything out from Stack Overflow and Google.
Some of that's just this baffling side effect where you'll get all these kind of recruiters who are like, we need someone who knows C#. We need someone who knows JavaScript ES6 or whatever. And like the reality is like if you find any even reasonably competent programmer, like they can within a week train up in that language you need them to know, figure out a couple of the tricks in it, learn the code base that they're waiting around in, probably even same day with no background in it, jump in there, copy syntax what others are doing, and like make things work. Totally. So you now it released at least one game in terms of
I released a couple. I've noticed for me I have a really short attention span, so I kind of stick to smaller mobile games, which seems to work. But I'm working on some larger titles. I'm trying to practice what I preach on the YouTube channel and actually see what it takes, like to get one of these 8-month, year-long games out there and go there. But yeah, I've released a couple games. I've done some freelance games and stuff like that. But like a bigger Steam game is still yet to be out there for me.
Gotcha. Well, and obviously when you get there, you've got this marketing advantage of being comfortable in that space and those challenges. A lot of people, it hits them completely off guard. They have been richly invested in the design space, the engineering space, the art space. But then they're like, how do and I literally, and so there was something we saw the other day. It was like a Reddit thread, which for all its faults is there's lots of it's a beehive of software engineers among other things. And there was like this game discussion chat, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, unless you like cheat and market your game, you don't have any chance." And it's like that's not cheating. And I saw Megan Fox on Twitter call it like a screen cap of the thing. It was like, what's wrong with people? Like, it's like, oh, I opened up a business, but I don't have a sign out front because that's cheating. Like, no, you have to be people aware of the thing you did. That's on you. You did it.
One of the reasons why I started YouTube is because when I started getting back involved in the indie community and all that, I was like, what is this perception that money is evil? Like marketing is evil. If you modify something to make people buy it more, it's wrong. What?
Yeah. And some of my research actually came in part as a counter pressure to some of those discussions where I was like, even the arcade games I loved, those aesthetics were built around eating quarters. And then when we started buying when we bought longer console games, a lot of us didn't think of it this way. They were made that way because if they were shorter games like the arcade games, you could rent it and get the full value without buying it. They had to make something worth buying at $60 a pop, whatever.
Yeah. And now they're going beyond that with the season passes and stuff.
Oh yeah, very much so. The games evolve around it, and I think some of it too. And one of our club members, Renault, actually pointed me out to a book called "Think Thou Shalt Prosper," and it's like this tome very much about the fact of like, hey, lots of people for weird cultural reasons, personal reasons, historical reasons, classist, whatever, feel like earning money is wrong. Like charging for something is sinful, etc. And so even so we have this conference we got coming up this weekend where we have like speakers and we're paying our speakers, which is actually unusual for a conference because we don't have less overhead since we're an online event. And some guy and this is a guy who I know he's done outside his own he's done little private events himself and charged for them, whatever, was getting on the case of one of our speakers for like, why isn't this event free? And it was like, because we want to be able to justify people being able to better prepare and invest time into doing it better, and we want to be able to make this worth the added value for the attendees. And man, what a difference it makes! But just people have these massive walls set up against like
they do, and honestly, that was one of the main like things that I wanted to kind of advocate in this space. Is like I really want to get people to understand, especially having a marketing background. One, if you can monetize something, that makes it sustainable.
Right.
You can do it forever. You can have more people do it. You can pay them to do it. You can build it bigger. You can keep going. So that's the biggest thing by far. But two, making people pay for stuff actually makes them value it more.
Yes.
And I know that sounds like a cop-out in a way to people that don't understand that, but it does.
No, yeah.
I have research to show that it works.
It's, very real. And this is one of the things in the club is we have the subscription effect, where same thing when people will sign up for a gym, they know they're paying for it. They're going to use it. Doesn't matter if it's a WoW account, if it's Gamkedo Club, if it's whatever it is. If they're paying for it, they're either going to use it or they're going to cancel it in a way that, man, like just the pile of books that are free downloads that I will never look at.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's and that's the kind of stuff I want to explore, honestly, because like I said, my challenges have never been technical. They've all been mental and emotional. And that was really something for me too. That's why I sold my first piece of software for $5, because I didn't feel like I thought people were going to like comment on it negatively and share it and say, look at this guy, he's doing horrible things. But
right.
It didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and a couple of things around this. So certainly when I was used to make iPhone games and I think my first ones would be like 99 cents back when that was actually a value. Like there was a window of time in 2008 when our 99% apps made the publisher a whole bunch of money because that was how the market worked at the time. But like what I figured out was like the higher price back then was like $2.99, $4.99, got way less garbage, demanding unfair comments posted of people demanding their value and their money back, whatever, for various reasons, right? I mean, having to do with like they won't buy it unless they're sure they're going to like it. That's one filter. I mean, also things where I'd have a 99-cent app, change it to free just to try to get some more ratings and exposure, whatever. Rating would go down because suddenly people would just get it who didn't necessarily like it. When it was $1, they wouldn't get it unless they thought they were going to like it. Self-selecting crowd, higher rating. These very bizarre, non-intuitive effects that. Yeah, totally. It's totally a difference.
And you're actually doing them a favor too, because they're looking at it through a different lens, and it makes them enjoy it more. That makes them like. I remember when I looked up FTL on iPad, I was like $9.99. How dare they charge $10 for an iPad? Right. But then I bought it. I was like, oh, this is better than all these other apps. Yeah, I could
$1 per hour, maybe the most efficient purchase I've ever made in my life.
Totally.
Well, and I remember too when I used to get annoyed about these kind of like weird price comparisons. I'd be like, well, like a soda is like what $1.79 expensive end. What are people mad about? But then like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, people like that soda so much that they can justify like chemical factories producing this stuff, sit in the back of trucks, drive it around the country, sit it in a store on a shelf, pay someone to stand in front of it in case someone wants to buy it, like mine steel for it. They've created value there in a way that's worth respecting. It's not like, oh, it's just a soda. It's like, wow, I can get that for only $1.78. Impressive feat of modern economy.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things like that I learned along the way about like human psychology. Like that was one of the things that fascinated me so much about marketing was figuring someone out. Like what makes them move, what makes them react, it also made me like self-reflect. Like why does this work on me? When I was compelled to buy a product, why am I compelled to buy the product?
Yeah.
Like, so, and all that applies to software and games and everything else. So I think it's a really interesting thing to kind of understand. And even if independent game developers want to focus on games and not marketing, I think they should learn marketing because it's so valuable in so many different aspects of life.
It's something that even if they, like I say, if business isn't their priority, certainly as an artist, same marketing will help them have a role in the dialogue. Or as an academic, the academics who like wind up drawing in better graduate students, better sisters, better partnerships, etc., are guys and women who frankly know how to market.
Yeah. No, I think you posted a video on communication and I commented on it because I was like, being an introvert, being a super shy dude, not wanting to talk to anybody, being terrified of communication, having to learn how to market people's products forced me to communicate with them.
Yep.
And it forced me to be more effective in my communication. And I'm so grateful for that because I would not be anywhere. I wouldn't have sold my company. I wouldn't have been able to land the clients that I had. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without effective communication.
Right.
And so many developers that I deal with still to this day, if I hire them for a project, they suck at communicating. They're like, it's from so many different aspects, right? Like from response time to to how they describe things, to how they disagree with me. Like, I want them to disagree with me.
Right.
You know, go for it. But if you're just saying no, that doesn't help me. Like,
Well,
how do you?
I wonder how much of this is the ghost of specialization, which works at giant companies, but man, does it ever fall apart in smaller environments or solo people, whatever. Where like at a huge company, there's a degree to which like, okay, this person's hired because they're an artist, this person's hired because they're a designer, hired because they're an engineer, producer, hired kind of because they can plan, also because they can talk to people. Like as bizarre as it seems,
they can
like
translate.
They can communicate, and literally, like, and so my fiance is a project manager with an advertising agency. Part of her job is like talk to the artists in a way that they can talk to the software team, and we can talk to the marketing team, and talk to the salespeople in a way to like navigate that. Because to a limit, like, don't let them talk directly to each other. Oh no, in these like very bizarre ways. Like, you know, we get these bizarre differences. It's and I think part of that weight too comes from realizing like there's a whole skill set there. It's not like, oh, just get over yourself, just talk to people. It's not as easy as like, oh, thanks, I hadn't considered talking to people.
Yeah, and
it takes practice. It's a skill.
There's thousands of little pieces in that. I posted a video called Jack of All Trades, and I was comparing learning one specific skill to knowing many. And I think like my main value to a client, like I said, is being able to take what they want, translate it into something that will work, and then communicate to the people that are going to build it.
Right.
That's all I do these days. Like, and that's it. But there's so much value in that.
Oh yeah.
Because the end product is so much better than if you just, I don't even want to think about what would happen if I just delivered the client's messages, like build this and see what would happen.
And I think this also, and of course this affects all kinds of game developers who do various forms of freelance, is realizing that part of the obligation of a contractor is to partially kind of educate the person that's hiring you or whatever. In a way that if you're at a huge company and you're isolated by like we're in the engineering team, we're in the art team, whatever, we can speak our language to our people. But like I've got a friend who, heck, she's just a photographer freelance, and like she'll get hired by a jewelry company, and jewelry company's like, hey, can we get this brochure tomorrow? And she's like, here's why that's not what you want. And like that's part of her job. She doesn't get to work with other photographers who know photography. She has to explain, here's what you're not seeing about why you're going to be unhappy with what happens if we pull this off overnight.
And in games, it's even worse because if you ever done freelance game design, the ideas that some clients are, oh my God. Like I had a client ask me to build our own version of cryptocurrency so we could design a slot machine game to use the cryptocurrency as the slot machine game.
Done.
And I was like, okay, let's pause on that for a second. Like, hold on, let's just think through that. There are probably laws involved here somewhere too.
I think recently the SEC has finally put down the hammer on ruining some of this fun. Yep.
Yeah, it was, but yeah, totally. Like communication is so valuable.
Oh yeah, all kinds of, I need a Facebook app, or the classic. Like, I mean, I've had people offer to pay me $75 to make them a flight simulator, and I'm like, I mean, so to an extent, and part of what happens, they'll see my rapid hacking videos, which are like pure stunt, don't try this at home garbage of like, here I go. But like, even if I can do that, it's because I've spent 20 years doing this, in which case it's still not like, I'm not charging for 5 minutes of my time. I'm charging for the 20 years that went into that 5 minutes of my time.
Yeah,
that's not how that works.
Yeah, I have like I'm going to probably be doing some like freelance videos on game development too, because there's so much value. Like that right there is a lesson I tell. I never charge by hour. I charge by project, because all of the stuff that you have ever learned collectively in your life goes into that single project, and it doesn't make sense. But also, I think charging someone by hour in a way is almost against their own best interest, because it's in my best interest to work longer and take longer.
And I find it's against my own interest developmentally, where like, gosh, and I also think I'm also like cognizant of the challenges around logistics and scheduling, and people, some companies basically are paying people to be available and all these other factors. But like when I'm charging hourly, I am penalized for being efficient and rewarded for doing it really slowly and badly. Yeah. And I'm like, that is never an incentive structure I will tolerate being in.
Exactly.
Just not.
Project basis makes so much more sense, because then you can actually, one, you can build it the right way, but two, I mean, I think it makes it a little more compatible with your lifestyle too.
Right.
Like, doesn't have to be, you don't have to log this stuff, you don't have to work certain times and all that. So
yeah. And there's all kinds of weird effects there as to certain kinds of work are easier at night, certain kinds of work are easier in the mornings, some days, and this all too well, it's like being also your own business kind of guy as well. There's days where like kind of like just can't do anything, and there's days where you're like crazy productive, like 2 weeks of work happens somehow immediately, and those are things that just don't fit in a 40-hour consistent schedule. And the harsh reality, right, is that people who are sitting in those like 9 to 5 locked in situations, that's true for them too, but they just have like a slow day. I remember I had a guy who it was his first time at a giant company, and he was trying to be like, man, some days I just feel like I'm not as productive. Should I like should I clock fewer hours? And I'm like, no, because you can't clock double hours on the days where you're super productive. You're being paid to be there from here to here, and that's how they have your deal structured. So that's what you got to work with for now, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, and honestly, that's one of the main reasons why, too, I want to push this stuff out there, because for a big part of my life, like I was living alone in LA working on this company. I wasn't communicating with other people in the same space. So I thought I was broken. Like I thought there was something wrong with the way that I was wired, because I didn't feel like doing this every day, or I wasn't, you know, you watch some of these people on YouTube or whatever, they're like, hustle every day, 24/7, do it. And it's like, I thought that's what normal people did, and I couldn't do that. And it was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. Like, and I want to like share the message with people that no, like this is, you're not a machine. You can't work 24/7.
Yep.
There are things that you have to do to kind of work around your humanness, you know?
Oh yeah.
And there's strategies and stuff to cope with that. You got to understand it first. You got to call it out. You can't just, you got to be aware of that it's happening, and then you can kind of deal with it.
Yeah, if I go for a 15-minute walk down the block and back, I make back way more than that 15 minutes of productivity when my afternoon is not just nonstop stuck inside existence.
Totally.
Yeah.
I have a multitasking video where I actually track my productivity, and I found that I used to watch like documentaries while I would do something, and I found that I could get more done by doing the thing and then watching the documentary completely passively,
right, than
actually trying to do them both at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So that blew my mind, because I was like, how? But
yeah. There's all these sort of things that intuitively we guess are how our brain works, and until we try it, we figure out. And it's really hard to tell inside the frame. Sometime we can fool ourselves. There's this old study I used to like about what was it? It was a bit of a placebo effect thing, but it was like, okay, they told half the participants, maybe a third, I'm not a scientist, told like a third of them or whatever, listening to music while you study helps you to perform better on the test. Told the other third, listening to music will distract you from your test. And the other third, they like didn't give music or whatever control group how these things work. And like it turned out like the effect had purely to do with whether or not they thought it would help or hurt them. Like that's what screwed them up or helped them, was the belief that like, oh, I'm doing the right thing, or like, oh, I wish I could shut this off, but I can't. In these very bizarre ways of man, it's hard to tell inside us what in the heck's going on without some sort of distance from it, some time from it.
Totally.
Someone else to talk to about it, to be like, oh, you also do this. Like I'm not abnormal.
Yeah, and I think learning to control those beliefs is really important, because like I said, for a long time I was like drifting around thinking that I was broken. So, you know, you can imagine what kind of placebo effect that has on me.
Oh yeah.
If I just think everything I do is wrong and it's broken, and I'm not as good as other people, like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
that can have an effect on you.
Some of that's of course various forms of imposter syndrome, and that word's become so broad now it means so many different things. But some of that falls under the breast.
I could go on this stuff forever and ever and ever. Like that's why I started a YouTube channel, because I was like, there's so much of this stuff. Like I would write it all down in my journal, and I just be like, I want to share it. I want to show people. I was surprised how high the engagement was on YouTube, because like I would always, as a marketing company, be like, yeah, you guys need a YouTube channel, you got to do this, and I had walked people through it plenty of times. But I had never actually like done it. And when I actually started doing the blog and doing a bunch of stuff for Game Dev Underground and actually getting on YouTube, I was like, the engagement rate is so much higher on YouTube than the blog was. And even though I enjoyed the writing, I was just like, this is so much more sustainable for me, because I know that this helps me keep going.
Yeah.
You know,
I kind of feel like the blog, as in like, here's my website, go to my blog, is dead. Like there's an extent
I'm
to which,
seeing that now. I didn't want to believe that.
People will post in public spaces like Medium. They'll post in public spaces like Reddit. They'll post on maybe their social media channels. But my God, they'll like go to my website and look at it. Like unless that blog has been around since like 2006, no one goes and looks at it. Like that's just not how we use the internet anymore.
I've been observing this for a long time, because like I said, when I was doing my marketing company, blog was prime time. So that was like my number one tip. So like I had helped people get so much search traffic. SEO was like the big thing. Blogs were the great way to get SEO. And I still think you can, like, I get incoming traffic from blogs. Right now I have someone, like writing articles just wasn't sustainable though for me though, because it would take 2 hours to write an article, and I would be in love with the article. The article would be great. But in those same 2 hours, I could film an entire week's worth of videos.
Right.
And then I could have someone else go through those videos and transcribe them all and turn them into articles.
Yep.
So like time-wise, and then you add in the engagement factor and how much engagement those videos get versus my blogs get 0 comments every part of it drives me crazy. Like 300 people read this. Yeah. Why did nobody comment?
No, yeah. I mean, like my audio podcast, which, and part of it is because the traffic split across it's syndicated out to Google, to Stitcher and Google Music and Apple iTunes and stream from the site, whatever. But like any single one of those is like splitting 4 directions, the already very few comments or other things I get. And like they get plenty of views and listens or whatever, but they just don't have the same engagement level. And the other thing about YouTube is, the thing I always heard was like, oh, don't look at the YouTube comments, like burn it down, kill it with fire, nuke it from orbit. It's just a hellscape of just people who are hateful. Like it's been so overwhelmingly positive. Like, yes, there's some trollish human beings, and there's some trollish people outside everywhere. But like there's a lot of like really constructive, positive reasons like, hey, thanks, this was helpful. Or like, oh, I'm glad you phrased it that way. And like, yeah, people on the internet. That's what I'm talking about.
I know, dude, I was so terrified to start. I have a video called Starting From Zero because I was scared to start from zero. That was the only thing that has kept me back from 2013 until 2017 is I did not want to start at that count of zero.
Yep.
Being a marketing guy, that's like my worst fear, right? Like,
yeah. Someone's going to see that you have zero.
Yeah. And then they're going to think that I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So there was this. But when I started and I started getting those comments like, oh, this is awesome. And like one of the first comments was 0 subscribers, ? But like, it was a good thing.
Right.
Like he was shocked at the quality of the video.
Oh yeah.
And he was like surprised by that. And I was like, okay, that made me feel better. But too, like, yeah, I've never used any other medium on the internet that has had that kind of engagement, but also that kind of positive engagement.
Yeah.
And I would imagine as the channel grows, the trolls start to find you easier and you get more people.
Some of it's volume of, there's definitely some scale. And for that, I've had a few videos that have really gone viral, which have led to a bunch of that incoming flux. Now, the nice part is like those kind of people don't stick around. They're not patient human beings. There's definitely at least a few who seem subscribed to my channel just to dislike the moment I post because I can count how many of those are consistently. But like, I know what you mean. Like early on, I think I had like a third as many subscribers as I do now, and somebody's comment was like, "How do you not have 100,000 subscribers?" And I was like, "Thanks, man. I'm trying really hard. Maybe someday I'm getting there."
Someone compared me to extra credits, and I was like, "Yeah, you go, random internet person."
There we go. That's right.
But it's crazy though. Like I've also been doing a lot of like technical research because I have a technical background but a marketing background. So I've been really looking into the YouTube algorithm and how it works. One of the things that I've noticed is YouTube seems to count all engagement as good. Dislikes, likes, whatever. Any kind of engagement you get is good. So that's a major thing. Yeah. So any developer that's posting their videos or devlogs definitely encourage interaction because that massively boosts it. But two, consistency, not only from a psychological perspective, but also from an algorithm perspective, makes a ton of sense.
Oh, yeah.
I decided, I think it was 67 days ago now, to do a 90-day challenge where I was going to post one video a day for 90 days.
Nice.
And if you could see the graph of my traffic on YouTube, I was posting one video a week, and there's a blip every week, but it would go back to the same spot. It would just go back down. And as soon as I started daily, it started staggering upwards. And then now it's like it's curving even more upwards, which is like, the hockey stick curve. Like once you get to a certain scale, I would imagine you have a constant watch time of like whatever, and your videos are constantly being syndicated out everywhere. But that first like 6 months to a year is really important. And that's the time where you don't get any feedback, where nobody watches, and that's why so many people quit in so many different things. Like so many people are like, Tim, I tried to do marketing. I posted a devlog one time 2 years ago, and I'm like, that doesn't like. And I just posted a video on advertising, right? Like people say, oh, I tried advertising. I put $50 into advertising. It didn't work. This takes a lot of time and a lot of consistency. You have to like look at this as a long-term game. And that's why like I have a video about quantity over quality too, because I think in the beginning you just have to focus about getting stuff out there and learning and posting and then seeing what happens and testing. Right. It's a giant experiment.
There's so many problems in anything. If you're drawing, if you're programming, if you're doing YouTube videos, if you're marketing, whatever, that like it's raw beginner errors. And there is, and the weird thing about beginner errors is like nothing anybody can say is going to knock those out of you besides you getting them out of your system. You got to work through that mess. You got to go through the awkwardness of like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. This is bad. I'm screwing up in so many ways. And the only way anyone doesn't do that is because they pushed through that muck on the other side of it. Like, I'm weirdly comfortable at it now all of a sudden.
No, and I was talking to a mentor of mine. He was like, oh, congrats on your YouTube stuff. And he was asking me like how long it takes. And I was like, yeah, I only do one take for like a 10-minute video and then I'll just post it. And I usually do like 5 to 7 at a time. So, I could do a whole week's worth in like 2 or 3 hours. And he was like, that's good. I was like, no, that's bad. Because that means I waited way too long.
Yeah.
Like I should have started in 2013 when I was uncomfortable and awkward and weird and scared of the camera and all that. That's when I should have started.
Yeah.
The fact that I can do this so easily means I waited way too long.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that you do in marketing, especially if it's new to you, if you're a beginner, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. You just got to do it. And you got to stick past the point of awkwardness, you know?
Yep.
You got to push past it. That's how you get places.
Especially for a lot of the people who are coming out of technical background or similar kind of foundations where they're used to like, I follow the right steps, I get the result. Like, did I do the equation right?
Yeah.
I got the answer. Is like not how anything in the business world works. And this, even if it's not even marketing, if it's sales, even applying for jobs, interviewing is a business skill. And
Right.
and they'll have this problem of like, did I do the interview correctly? Is that why I didn't get the job? I'm like, that's not how this works. You can do everything perfectly and still bounce off 9 out of 10 sales, marketing attempts, interviews, whatever. It's business. And a business person, like part of what makes them businessy is like, they know that, they rebound effortlessly, they keep it up. No one even notices that they just struck out 9 times out of 10 because that's the only way to get those 1 in 10. Then they just keep pushing. They know if they're going to sell 3 today, they ask 30 people.
Yeah, and understanding the metrics is really important too, because like I when I would used to do consultations and stuff, I would actually consult with startup founders on how they're marketing. And they'd be like, my software is so much better than the market leader. And I'm like, it's not though, because they have the audience.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what you do. If you can't get the audience, they got the advantage there.
Right.
So either you figure out how to take their audience with better software but there's so many other pieces to it than building a better mousetrap, you know?
Yeah,
like you can make the best game on the planet, but if nobody sees it, it's going to be hard for you to get sales.
Right,
so
right.
You got to start that somewhere.
So the platform that you're currently building, the community you're currently building, am I correct? It's partly about connecting developers to marketing metrics and those kind of things, or how does it all kind of fit together?
Yeah. So I'm kind of guilty of all the mistakes that I tell startup founders to avoid in this. But yeah, I've been kind of trying to figure it out as we go. And right now, what I'm trying to build is first a community that believes in the idea that we should have more indie games, right? Like, I think in a different reality, I would have had a ton more games out there on the market. I would have been a different person, you know, probably wouldn't have known marketing as well. So maybe they wouldn't have worked well, but but I think the world needs more games. And I hate the idea that there are so many graveyard games that just never get completed.
Right.
You know, I hate that they're sitting on some hard drive somewhere and we'll never see them because they're half done. So that's first, but technically, I want tools and technology to kind of enable game developers to think about it a little differently. Things like conversion rate and things like landing pages, I think are really important. I'm trying to build pieces of that into it, but I'm also trying to integrate things like devlogs and that kind of stuff into a game. Like the original idea when I had it back in the day was MySpace for people's games, back when MySpace was a thing.
Yeah.
But Itch came along, IndieDB came along. They kind of took care of that aspect of it, but there's still that part where we need marketing. We need to figure out how to do this stuff. So a lot of stuff we're working on now is press kit generator,
right?
A database of press people that you can contact once you reach a certain level. Automated things that make your life easier, that kind of tell you go here, do this, and kind of can help bring your game out there. Because one, I think I want to bypass the basic starter mistakes for everybody. Like all the stuff that took me years to learn.
Right.
I would love everybody just to start at that point, right? So if I can build a piece of technology that can kind of help them jump ahead 5 years, that would be great.
Scales better, saves them some pain.
Absolutely. But also, like, if I can build something that can kind of help developers communicate and help them connect with each other and keep them motivated more than anything else, then I'm all for it. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I think it's kind of evolved a bit into the YouTube channel, right? Like now I'm talking about the actual struggles, the motivation, the sticking to it, the consistency, all that stuff. So I think it'll continue to evolve. I think there may even be some integrations, because I think I've done surveys and I've asked around, and I think the biggest problems that all indie game developers have is finishing and marketing. Those are the two biggest problems by far. I think that's the problem with most projects out there, I would say.
I will also say, to asterisk by those are what people perceive their problems to be, which is not always the same as what the problem is, but definitely where the demand is, of where they self-identify, here's what I need.
You are correct, because the same people that say they need help marketing have never finished a game, which would mean, like, how... Yeah, you don't have a product to sell. How can you...
Right.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And then there's often a hidden question of, like, no amount of marketing will fix, and I feel terrible saying this, no amount of marketing will sell this. And this is not to say there's anything like the person's bad. Sometimes it's like your first piano recital shouldn't be sold on iTunes. Like that's the nature of creative things. and you have to do that to get somewhere. You have to plow through that. But yeah, it's often perceived as like, oh, the problem was that my game didn't market well. I'm like, that's not the problem here.
Yeah,
that's not.
I think the best way to make a great game is to make a bunch of bad games.
Oh yeah,
first.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
get that experience out of the system.
You got to start somewhere.
When it starts equipping people with conceptual tools to draw upon, of like, last time I did these things, here's how I'm going to inform my progress from that. One of my favorite JDC talks, Alexander Bruce, talking about how Hazard, formerly, I guess Antichamber, formerly Hazard, was kind of a product of like 7 different failed projects he'd worked on, and bits and pieces he globbed from those is able to construct and reinform those into like this grander, longer arc of a game that otherwise couldn't have happened without that kind of fodder.
And I agree. I've had, I mean, dude, my YouTube channel is a result of all my failures. You know, like I'm not talking about all the great things that I did. Look at me. No, it's like, oh, I messed this up. I didn't do this right. I couldn't figure this out. Like, yeah, failures are so important. And that's why I love the startup methodology, like the lean startup, the fail faster, the so short iteration cycles. Like that stuff makes so much sense when you're building something technical like that, because it's a better way to build. You know?
Yeah. Rather than trying to guess and cross your fingers and come up for air 4 years later with the finished product and be like, I hope the market wants this.
Yeah, and I've done that. Like, you know, oh my God, I don't even. There was probably 4 or 5 startups that I started in the space of 5 years, and they all made various mistakes that just made them crash burn. Not to say they weren't good ideas. Right. Everybody has good ideas, though. It's not about the ideas; it's about the execution.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff is about failures, and if for me, I was always, especially with Game Dev Underground, I was scared to fail in public. You know, especially like if I have all these game developers following me, what if one of my games fails? That's going to make me look stupid. But you know, I was like, you know what? When I finally really understood this, I was like, that's going to teach them more. That's going to teach them what not to do. So I'm going to do all this stuff in public, and I'm going to let people watch, and I'm going to make videos about it and show them. And if it doesn't go over good, they're not going to all turn on me and hate me, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, and I think lots of other folks also forget that there's this. The brain is so bad at estimating scale. It's one of these things like space just seems like as big as a Walmart. Like they're big, and our brains can't really comprehend humongous. The same thing with numbers of scale. We're like, oh, what if I fail and people watch my YouTube channel? Then like, reality is not that many people noticed. That's why I failed. 30 people
honestly,
found out.
They like you,
oh no, yeah.
If they like you, they don't even care.
By the time there's by the time there's 70 people only, they all know like they're part of the exclusive 70. That's kind of cool. But also, there's only 7 people who know you only have 70. And that's fine.
Honestly, I think too. You shouldn't put that much, like we go through these battles in our head where we put so much significance on these things that just don't matter.
Yeah.
Like failures they don't matter. You keep going. Yeah. The only real way to fail is to stop.
Well, you know? The only other caveat there is that some failures are more recoverable than others. And I think there's this, I think you're kind of factoring in there already come like your own intuition and experience of like, there's certain ways we avoid taking certain risks because like I want to be able to keep going with it. And that's actually part of what's guided me towards a lot of the track that I go. And part of maybe a methodological difference is often, I'll emphasize people, because they're often very beginner level when I'm working with them, like, keep your first few projects non-commercial, etc. Because let's get those beginner errors out of your system. And if they're expecting to make back money on the game in a way that, like, they're probably not going to, they will overly invest into it. And that's where they start getting some unrecoverable errors of, like, drained through their life savings on it, went into debt over it, whatever kind of stuff. And, like, no, let's you know, have the tumble mats out when we're practicing our first moves. When you get more advanced, you can raise the stakes and whatever. But like,
yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, and that's kind of what I'm all about is mitigating risk and making sure that people don't make some of the same mistakes I have. Because I don't talk about this a lot, but I have been pretty much homeless from some of my mistakes. I have lost money. Like I've had cars repossessed. I've had the world crash in on me before any of my successes ever came to fruition, you know? And still, like, I'm not a perfect dude. I still have stuff that happens to me. So yeah, I want to save people from some of those expensive lessons and some of those lessons that I think would have stopped other people in their tracks, you know? But at the same time, I want to say that like, I very easily could have quit back there at any one of those things, you know? And the decision to keep going was purely, it didn't make any sense at the time. It was devastating. It felt like the world hated me. The world was against me, but I kept pushing on. And, you know, I think there's something to say about really looking at your life like it's only a matter of time before you do it right. You just can't stop. You just have to keep on doing it, pushing on. Yeah. And absolutely, like games, Same thing. Like if you make like people look at like they see the documentary, right? What's it called? Indie Game,
the movie. Man,
yeah.
I both love all the guys in there and love all their games and respect all of them, and I've seen so much damage come out of people's misunderstanding about how the market has changed.
Like, and if you look at they watch the guy that made Super Meat Boy, I forget his name.
Tommy and
the other guy, I forget his name.
Edmund McMillan.
Edmund, yeah, that's him. So they watch that and they're like, "Wow, I could do that," but they don't see the 10 years that guy spent putting out game after game after game on all these Flash websites over and over, refining his art skills, doing all that to get to the point where they could release something on Xbox 360 as an arcade, not as an indie game.
Right. Well,
like,
and this is also even at, and this is part of why I think the movie has had the effect that it's had at a very certain crux in time where, like, even 2 years before that movie, that sort of thing didn't exist. App Store didn't exist yet. Casual games weren't widely sold. Steam wasn't yet selling indie games in the same level, etc. Which means there was like this front-loaded wave of people who had like gone into it with a head start. They were ready. They were in the right place in the market timing. They had the connections to teams at Microsoft, or they're already going to GDC or whatever. And this is not blaming anybody. It's not discrediting anybody. It's not taking away anything. It is to say though that very rapidly, once people saw like, oh, there's money in those hills, man, the market within even a few years of things that like sold well and did sell well and would have sold well in 07, 08, 09, by 10 and later, and certainly the past, so again, like even literally this past 5-7 years, have been like off the radar, irrelevant from the level of saturation competition of very skilled people coming into it, ready to invest, taking it out as a business approach as opposed to like, oh, we'll just try a thing. Vastly different market space. Totally.
Different market space, but also they didn't take into account like the beat before that and after that, like how much work it takes to build and maintain that. Like, it's a great movie because it makes you feel good, right? Feel good documentaries are great to watch for that. Yeah, it's not reality in the sense that you could just sit down, make a game with a friend, and do it.
But I remember it was probably 08 or it was probably, no, I guess it must have been 09 or 10. Whenever the iPad was new, and I still live in San Francisco. I walked to the Apple store, bought my iPad, knowing I'm going to go home, make an Apple, and this is going to pay for itself. This will be a negative expense. I'm making money off this. Did it and paid my rent for a year and a half off the thing I put on.
That's awesome.
But like right now, I don't walk into an Apple store thinking I'm going to pay off a device buying it. That's not the environment we're in, market space wise, versus like being one of the first iPad compatible apps on the store or whatever.
Totally. Yeah. And I think timing is a big factor too. I think Outliers was the book talks about how all the most successful people on the planet, it was just kind of luck that they were in the right place at the right time.
In addition to doing all the right things.
They did all the right things, but they were also like at the right place at the right time. Like, Peter Thiel, the billionaire investor, says that the next Facebook isn't going to be a social network.
Oh yeah. A 0 to 1. He's got all these kind of examples, right? Of like, there's like exactly one occurrence of all these kind of things, and the situation is always going to be different.
So when people see a successful game, they're like, I'm going to copy that and be as successful. That's not how it works.
By the time there's a formula for it, everybody else knows the formula too. By the time it's like, the wave of Minecraft clones or the wave of whatever's. Think about like it's luck, but it's also, you got to put in the work. My fraternity, I think like senior year in college, won first place in an event. We had no business getting first place in some sort of relay race thing. We consistently were like 5th, 6th, 7th or whatever. But like a perfect storm of circumstances where like 2 were disqualified. Some other group didn't show up in time. 2 other people like tripped over each other, whatever. Like we got first, and that still meant like we worked our butts off to be in position for that to work, because otherwise somebody else would have been the one to take advantage of that like perfect flux of bad timing.
Well, I mean that's why consistency is so important, right? Like you gotta make YouTube videos for 60 days before somebody random puts a video in a Slack chat somewhere and it gets a bunch of views. You gotta set yourself up for those scenarios, and you do that by constantly doing, by being consistent, by being there, by learning, by evolving. So it's crazy how the world works, but it's not one and done.
Nope. I like what you said about like, I spent $50 on advertising. I figured advertising is a crook, so waste of money. Now what? That's not how that works.
No, dude, when I got into advertising, I thought the same thing too, and it was like I realized that this was one giant experiment. This was a numbers game. And that I posted a video today or yesterday that was about the whole process from click-through rate to landing page conversion rate to monetization method. And if you can get all those numbers to align, you can build a money-making machine. You can build a machine where you put $1 in the top, you get $2 at the bottom.
Right.
That's when you hit the gas pedal. That's when you dump money into that thing. You don't dump money in before you're at that point.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. It's a constant like $5 a day, $10 a day test until you get to that point.
Well, and even that, of course, that's in like kind of SEO, web design, landing page kind of terms. Even just in game space, and this is something that as much as some people hate this example, like Zynga made the point many years ago. It might have been Ben Pincus or whoever, talking about the water bucket with a bunch of holes in it, and like you don't start pouring a bunch of water into it until you're sure that like it holds the water. And so even if they like, okay, well, they've made this game, why are they not driving all their traffic into it yet, out of Farmville and out of their solitaire blackjack games, whatever? And it's like, because we haven't yet justified that this is as efficient as we can at retaining those players. And something I try to encourage people to think about, like in terms of even this question of like, is this worth spending money market or putting out the energy to contact press about, et cetera, is if tomorrow morning everyone was forced, government edict, we all know there's some weird stuff going on in the government anyway, they force everyone to play your game for like 30 minutes. Doesn't matter who they are, what age they are, whatever. Who will ever play it a second time or talk about it again? And if the answer is nobody, then anything you do to market is kind of like either pure practice or waste of time. Until that number is better than like, oh, you want people to keep talking about it, keep coming back to it. When you can prove you can do that, then it's worthwhile to push and push hard.
And that's why like a lot of developers too, when you ask them something like that, they're just like, I think, they don't.
Have they tried it in front of somebody?
Yeah, like, have you watched somebody play it? Have you like actually done research? Like, have you bought a book about how to make the process a little more addicting? Have you done the groundwork, or did you just make something that you thought was cool and then now you're upset it didn't make you money? Like, it's a process, and I think I love games because games, unlike software, they don't have any actual benefits. Like if I was selling you a supplement or something, I could say, oh, this helps you increase muscle, it does whatever. Right. With games, all the games have the same benefit. They're entertainment, they're escapism. So the way that you sell a game is really up to you. It really, you get to decide what you emphasize and what you don't, what stories you tell, what pieces you share. And people, a lot of times, they don't have a good concept of that. They build something and then they're upset that the market doesn't. It's the same problem startups have, Right. They're just like, oh, why doesn't anybody want it? Why didn't it make money?
And I think part of what I like about games is how that even though they are for, entertainment plus or minus, that itself being a fairly broad word, it's for like, so same could be said for painting pictures or drawing pictures, of which there are people who are down in front of City Hall on Saturday mornings with like the flea market selling their pictures. They brought 13 of them they made. They're one of a kind. Come get them. $100 each, whatever. That's one way to go. And somebody else is like printing posters to sell to Walmart, to sell in every single store. Right. And it might be a photograph of some rapper or whatever. But like that works at that scale. This works at that scale. But they got to know the difference and figure out like where are they positioning it. Because if you put either one of those in the opposite setting, doesn't work.
Yeah. And and I noticed this for me too. Like if you are unsure about something, if you don't know where to go, you don't know which option is for you, try them all.
Yeah.
Try everything. The best way to figure out what you don't want to do is to do it. Best way to figure out what you want to do is to do a bunch of things you don't want to do.
Walk around in the shoe, see if it fits. Didn't work.
Totally.
Try another one. Yeah.
And I found that like marketing for me, I actually do enjoy marketing. I do enjoy the psychological aspect. I don't like marketing things I don't believe in.
Right.
That makes me feel dirty. It makes me feel like manipulative, and in a way it kind of is, because if I really doesn't believe something's going to work and I have to convince people to buy it, that's shady, and I think a lot of people have that same feeling so for their games, and what I've realized for me is that whenever I feel that way about a game, either my game isn't good enough or my self-esteem is so low that I think my game isn't good enough.
Right.
It's one of those two things, and the tricky part is you don't usually know when your self-esteem is low. You can't figure out whether it's your game. You gotta kind of like look at it, but you don't figure those things out until you get the stuff out there. You continually produce. You can compare your latest game to your last game and see what's better. Like it just takes a lot of consistency, a lot of iteration, a lot of evolution over time. And I think time is the number one thing.
Yeah.
Just getting out there. And a lot of people, they don't do that. They try it for 6 months, it doesn't work. They dabble. They spend an hour a month trying to something, and it's you got to dedicate to it. You got to, if it's something you want to do, you got to do it for sure.
I still get some comments on my other videos where like, it's impossible that he's done this thing that he's done. He faked it. It's a sped up video. Like, I just literally sank 20 years of my life into doing this. Here's the 100+ games I produced in that time. If you dedicate 20 years of your life to doing something, you will be wacky good at it. Whether it's balancing chairs on your head on a TV show, whether it's breakdancing, singing, whatever. like there's this inevitability of like some years were slow, some years were better, some years were whatever, but like I just kept doing it, and then it shows up in the time of like do stuff that looks bizarre.
That's why I love things like YouTube too, like watching you on YouTube, watching people that like they put those 20 years into it, they've learned some things, and they share those things that I never would have learned, or that I can save some time learning by just implementing them.
Right.
You know, right away. So I think too, like for now these days, it's not so much about lack of information. Like back in the day, it used to be about, I don't have the information to do this thing.
Right.
Now it's too much information.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know where to start,
yes.
You know, because I have access to everything, and I'm going to watch 10 million YouTube videos before I even download Unity.
Literally more videos are being produced faster than you can watch the ones that are there. Practically speaking, more than infinite content to watch, and it's not accounting articles to read, whatever. Yeah, and this is something I just put out a video today about piling up books. Where like if you're at a very beginner level, books can help you get your traction. If you're at a very advanced level, books can be like these like hidden nuggets of gems that aren't going to be anywhere else in the world. You got to be dig for those. But in the middle, you just got to practice. And too many people instead think that they're going to pile up all these books. They find them on sale online. They get them in bundles. They hog them up at stores. Have this big mountain of books. A, they don't have time to read all that. B, even if they did, like what they need to do is practice. Sitting there reading is not going to move them further along their progress line.
I had a video called "Are You Ready to Start?" and in the first 10 seconds, I just say yes. just go, just do it. Yeah, because I had the same problem, right? Like I would buy all these books, I would do all this research, I'd buy all these expensive courses from these people that knew what they were doing, and then sometimes I would watch the stuff, sometimes I wouldn't, and it would just be, now I don't know where to start. Now I have all this knowledge, and I feel knowledgeable, but I don't know where to go.
And I wonder too about some of that might be shifting our speaking kind of marketing terms, our brand perception of ourselves. And this is something that educators speak a lot about, like roles in helping a student do better at science. Partially like get them to think of themselves like play the role of scientist, put on the little lab coat, put on their goggles. Now I'm a scientist. Yeah. And it's different than like I'm a third grader. What business have I mixing soda and vinegar or whatever? And,
totally.
And like you say, like until you've made games, it's hard to be like, I'm a game developer. It's hard to take yourself seriously that way, or like I'm not a marketer. I don't know that. I think sometimes the damage I'll see from the specialization someone has a formal background in something, which gives them depth of appreciation of like how much they don't know about something else. And they're like, well, I can't be an artist.
Yeah.
And it's like about
I went through that too. Dude, identity can be one of the best things or one of the worst things possible for you. Your self-identity determines so much about you. And I know for a long time, like when I was involved in startups, I looked at myself as, I wanted to be like this wonder super smart kid that just like could like start a startup and make $1 billion. And that was my self-identity. I spent so much time reading all these inspirational books and all this stuff. But what it really did to me was it made me feel like a failure. It made me feel not good enough. It made me feel inadequate because that was my identity, and I was hiding this thing from the world. I was hiding this piece of me who I really was. And it was interesting because like when everything kind of went crazy and like my car got repossessed and everything, like, and I was sitting all alone, like with no money in my bank account, I had to choose between feeding me or my dog. It was like, it kind of made me change my identity. Like my identity can no longer be tied to a Dodge Challenger. It can no longer be tied to the office in Culver City. It can no longer be tied to these, things. There's no excuse there. It's just me.
Right.
And having to meet people like in that space and like interact with them, and they would ask me like, what do I do? Who are you? Like they try to figure out these things. And I had to kind of formulate who I was because I no longer had these things around me. It taught me a lot. And I think a lot of people, I've noticed this, like, especially if they work specialized jobs or they're around certain people that like to tell them what they are and what they aren't. They can kind of grow up thinking that they are certain things. Like another version of this is I thought I was a programmer, so I couldn't be an artist.
Right.
I was a logical thinker, so I could not be a creative person.
Because you're a programmer.
Yeah. I'm not a manager. I'm a programmer. Yeah. So like, I really got to encourage people to like really think about your self-identity and what you think about yourself and the things that you say to yourself, because that can define so much of what you do and who you talk to and who you interact with and how you interact with them, because it can be very damaging too in a way, like if you have the wrong self-identity. Because for me, like even the identity even played into like when I was starting my YouTube channel, right? Like I was concerned putting my name on something that was in a specified field. Like, who is this guy to make games about make videos about video games? He's never had 1 million downloads. He doesn't have some famous hit game. Who am I to tell people about games? You know, I'm not qualified to do that, but I decided that part of my identity is wanting to help people. That's why, like, I don't know if you remember, but I tweeted you and I asked you, what did you like doing better, making games or helping other people make games? And you said both of them include people, and I just like helping people. And I was like, that is like the perfect answer, because that's so true. And like, that really resonated with me a lot, because that's what I want to do. And I made the decision to kind of help people regardless of what I was. And my identity kind of kept me back from doing that for a long time, you know, because of what people thought or what I think people would think. And none of that really matters in the end.
Well, and I mean, and a couple things about that. I've had situations where after I've given one of my first few talks at IndieCade, and I've gotten a little bit smoother at giving talks on stage or whatever, but one of the questions was like, you've been doing this for so long, how can you possibly relate to someone who's just beginning this? Like that, and that's a problem I had to come from, of like, I specialize in helping beginners, so my attention is constantly on their projects, their challenges, whatever, but it is not the situation I am currently in. That is not, whereas as opposed to the fact that you're also working through this is actually probably for many audience members more relatable to their like, hey, I'm also trying to figure this out right now. What's the 2017 answer, not the 1997 answer?
Totally.
And like, that's useful to people. That's got real value. And I think people forget sometimes, like, as soon as you've got any kind of traction, you've released a game, you've gotten used to using a tool, whatever, you are a step ahead of so many people who want that first step of traction in a way of like, what worked for you? How are you doing it? And they want to follow right behind drafting, and that, you know, and that can be very helpful to people.
And it's really important too, that like, you understand that you can do these things, you can get places in life, and you don't stop doing something just because someone tells you can't, or you think that you can't, or you think it's outside of your scope. Like, you can still try it. You can still get out there. You can see if it works for you. Like, weirdly, I like doing art. One of my favorite parts of like designing websites or something is doing the CSS and doing the design. Yeah. And I always thought of myself as a programmer. And it was weird making that transition of kind of like redefining myself as, no, I like doing things. I like creating. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's writing or making YouTube videos or whatever. And I'm starting to see that, like, yeah, everybody, we like to put people in boxes in our head. We like to say, that's the game guy, that's the movie guy, whatever. But everybody has these pieces to them that are multifaceted. They all have very different skill sets, and you can have multiple skill sets that conflict with each other. Like, dude, I used to make rap music. I used to be a rapper. And for a long time, I tried to hide that fact, because I was like, at the time I was a marketing consultant, and I told myself, you can't be a rapper and a marketing consultant at the same time. You can't do that. Those two things conflict. But you can be everything at once. Right. You know, you can make music and games and do marketing and do all this stuff in YouTube videos. And that's one of the reasons why I like games too, because it requires so many different skill sets. It requires my skill set in music, in art, in programming, in all these different things. It keeps things fresh. You know, so I don't get bored on doing one thing.
Well, and that's what I liked about smaller teams as opposed to when I was on giant teams and had to be pigeonholed into like, you only get to do the thing in your narrow lane. And I was like, I want to make the sound effects and do level design and programming, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, for sure.
I think games are better when everybody's kind of involved in, like, if you got to have the right teammates, obviously, because if you have the people that are kind of hard to work with and they get involved in everything, it can get complicated. But like, if you're a collaborative team and you work well together, everybody has stuff to add in every piece to it. You know, there are plenty of, some of the best features or things from my games have come from people that like I let play it, or teammates or whatever. And they're just like, you know, this doesn't feel right. It'd be really cool if it did this instead. And I'm like, that's brilliant. How did I spend 2 months and not do that? Like, what? That's so obvious. But yeah, you got to be open to that kind of like thing. You can't think that you design the plan and you're the god of this game and everything has got to be perfect how you want to design it. You know, you be open to that, like things that just come out of nowhere. From different people.
Yeah, I think the value of the plan is enough clarity to get started, enough clarity to get people on the same page of the team, to get motion going and identify a realistic possibility of like, here's what might happen in this time frame. But thereafter, it's all about, like, if I can productively swap out this whole chunk of what I was going to do with something better use of that time, we should do that. The goal is to make the best game we can in this time, not the one we wrote down the general outline of when we started.
Right. No, I did Ludum Dare 39 live recently, and it was like, dude, we didn't have a game until like the last hour or two, and everything kind of just modified and changed itself. We were building like this tower defense crazy game, and then what we ended up with was like a tank top-down shooter. And it all just kind of came together as like me and the stream were kind of like communicating, collaborating, and working on ideas. And I don't recommend that that's how you start making a game if you're on your own, but it was really cool for Ludum Dare to kind of see that and see like giant collaboration just kind of all kind of come together and mesh together and create something awesome from just, you know, playing it, getting feedback, iteration cycles. And we started out with a tower defense game. We ended up with a top-down tank shooter out of like constant iteration and like feedback. So be open to that kind of stuff for sure, because it's so important to just keep an open mind.
Yeah, and I think part of that, and one of the things that I'm often ringing the bell on, is that the Brain's a terrible emulator. That we want to fool ourselves into thinking that we can just imagine exactly how it's going to play, and it's always different on device. It always works if it works, it's for different reasons than we thought it would. And every now and then I'll mention these kind of things, and someone will comment like, "My brain's a perfect game loader. I imagine exactly games." I'm like, "Show me the game you made. Show me any game you made." And there's silence, because those people have never tested the fact that like their brain can't. But we fool ourselves. It's like when we dream, and like the light. I'm sure when we dream, like the lighting is wrong, the shadows are wrong, the colors are wrong. But to our brain, it looks right, because our brain's projecting exactly what we're looking for. As to like, here's this. Looks correct.
Totally. Yeah. I spend a lot of my time prototyping for that exact reason. Like, when I think of a game in my head, it never works out like that.
Yeah.
But like, I had this idea for like this rope physics game where you kind of swing, and like the physics on that it did not work out like that at all in my head. Like there were not the laws of physics going on in my head. So
anytime there's grappling hooks, it's lots of fakery. Yeah,
I've noticed that. That's one of the things I kind of tell people too. Is like, I had a video about, can bad programmers make great games? Because like a lot of people get discouraged about that. Like, I shouldn't have to fake this effect, but it's the outcome over the output, right? It's not about what you do, it's about what at the end result is. And totally, if you can get the result without doing all the work or doing this crazy amount of thing that's going to distract you or potentially make you quit, go for it.
I think it's a question of how we overload the word bad programmer. A lot of the bad programmers I've seen, in my use of the word bad, is somebody who approaches what should be a very simple 1 week game and somehow blows it out to be multi-months long of trying to over-architect and over-engineer everything, and can't get over themselves and their dogmatic habits about the only way that they're allowed to do things is such and such, or they're going to get slapped by a ruler from some invisible teacher. And it's like, nope, you need way less structure. You need to stand this up quickly. And that's because 90% of the time we're going to throw it out anyway, or redo this piece, or the game's going to be not worth making. We can't tell till it's done anyway.
I think it can come from the identity we're talking about too, because like bad and good, they don't exist. Like it's a relative scale of better or worse. It's not bad or good, you know? And like, especially like self-taught, I've seen this with me because I'm self-taught. For a long time, I just considered all the guys on Stack Overflow, they're better than me. They know something I don't. I'm just this dude trying to struggle along, faking it, you know? I'm grabbing all these pieces of code from all these places that I'm making this thing, and I'm faking my way to programming. But I've noticed that like people can't tell the difference on my result versus other people's result, you know? Is it, I mean, I realize it has effect when I started working with teams. Like, I got to comment more and clean up a little bit.
Those habits.
But it's not bad or good. It's just a series of better or worse.
There's a lot of context as to the situation where it's appropriate.
And even some code, you can't really say it's better or worse. Like, if you do this in 3 lines and you do it in 3 lines differently, what's you can go speed test and you get worried about perfection.
There's all kinds of questions about like, well, there's trade-offs between like what's readable, and it's like I can fit in 3 more nice features that are working, or I can do this thing that I like sleep better at night, but it's only one of those 3. There's a decision to be made in there, and I know which one my players want me to make when I can pull it off and get away with it. And like,
sometimes good programmers got to make bad code for different reasons.
Yeah. You know? Occasionally, those trollish comments on the YouTube, I try to remind myself that it's a bit like, especially at scale when there's a whole bunch of the people, and there's some effect of like the negative ones always stand out. It doesn't matter if there's like 100 good things said and to like the 1 or 2 bad. The 1 or 2 bad just grab you worse, hang on to you. And of course, like, well, that means that at scale, if there happen to be like 3 times as many, oh, you definitely notice that. Because now you have 6 instead of 2. But the other bit is that it's a bit like if everybody watching TVs yelling at their TVs, if the actors and actresses on the television and the news people could just hear those voices and just stop and be thrown off by it. But you really just can't let that screw up your whole show. Like, that's not what this is for. Who knows? Maybe they rolled off the wrong side of the bed. Who knows where they're coming from in their situation or whatever. It's not going to get sorted out of YouTube comments, that's for sure. So, like, appreciate the positive ones, the negative ones. See if you can, take a grain of learning out of it sometimes you can't. And it's just like,
for sure. Yeah, I notice a lot of the negative stuff usually has more to do with the person than the content. It usually comes from like especially the negative. The more negative they are, the more it has to do with the person.
Right.
Like it's because there's no reason to be that rude on something, especially if you're trying to help somebody.
Right.
But it's I definitely agree with you. They seem to stick out. You just gotta keep going.
And it feels bad too because like you can't like come back after them because when you recognize, when you have the empathy to know like they might be coming from a bad place, whatever, like anger's not going to fix that. Fighting them is not going to fix that. Like,
and imagine as you get bigger, like especially at your scale, like it's you do more damage than good by responding to something like that.
Don't want to call attention to it. Don't want to turn to you can tell if a comment's like in good faith as to like an actual question or one that's just trying to like pick an argument and like, nope.
There's some sneaky trolls out there. I've been tricked before though. I've had a question that like seems like it's a legitimate question, and then I answer it and they turn it into some crazy. I'm just like, wow, these sneaky trolls, they're getting sneakier.
Sneaky.
But yeah, it's
And also online, you can't tell sometimes online, sometimes a person's literally 11 years old. Now, like that's not like an automatic defense in all cases. Yeah. But sometimes like it really
you forget that.
And like you have to remember like maybe in all honesty, again, like there's probably some fair criticisms too from very experienced people. Online, you can't tell. Like it really could just be like, if I argue with a child, I lose. There's no winning scenario there.
I was reading like it was an article on like how to cope with negative comments or something. I forget where I found it, but I was like, oh, that's relevant because like I'm starting to get to the scale right now where YouTube is taking a little more experiments on my stuff and pushing it out to people that aren't like super fans. So I'm starting to get to that point where it's negative. And one of the things was if you read a comment, automatically assume that it's an 11-year-old and see if it still makes you mad.
Yeah,
or it's like a 13-year-old or something. And that's a good way to look at it. Like what you just said, like assume that they're that age and see if it still angers you, that they have no clue what they're talking about.
And I tend to try to be very pragmatic in my communications in terms of what, and this is a little bit of Dale Carnegie, and me and my dad always encouraged like Dale Carnegie, blah, 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 study, good communicator, etc. Antiquated stuff, but a lot of it still applies. And like if I think I can somehow help people or the person by entering into that communication, I can engage in that situation. If I think that nothing I say is going to help their situation, I'm not going to enter a conversation to make myself feel good. I'm not trying to get out of it to like get it off my chest. I'm there to serve a purpose that's constructive, and if I can't, I got other uses of my time and energy and other people to talk to, and
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Like dude, especially like it's one of the reasons why I'm kind of happy that Steam Greenlight went away, because I saw so many people get destroyed and they didn't deserve it at all, but like there's so many mean people there, and like they would just comment, and I've seen so many people get discouraged by that, and like and then not only that, but then if you don't actually get greenlit after going through all that, it'd be like traumatic, if you worked a year on this thing and put your heart and soul into it and then put it up there, and then some trolls are like, oh, especially when it's like something that doesn't even do with the game. Like I've seen people downvote it specifically because, oh, this is made in Unity.
Oh yeah,
this is garbage.
That was the whole thing recently.
Yeah, I've had people start to be concerned about Unity because of that. And I actually had to answer a live stream because someone asked me about that.
I think there were some good points that were around the community as to like, hey, what a backwards marketing branding decision. I think even John Riccatello, CEO of the company, wherever, acknowledged like, maybe it was a mistake that our free version says Unity in front of it and the ones people pay for it don't. So the only ones they associate with are games that their business is not making at least $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Period.
For real.
Which now means that logo was associated with that. And meanwhile, if it's a AAA grade game built in Unity, and those do exist, then like no one knows that that's in Unity because whatever.
Yeah, that's so backwards. Exactly. I agree with you. I think that's probably the primary thing, because a lot of the crap shovelware games are just... And
to be fair, this is discounting entirely the asset flips. We're like, when people just straight up buy and slap together asset store stuff, yeah, all right, that's fair. That's a problem.
Well, there's entire websites now where you can buy games. You can buy the source files of games, but you can also pay additional money to have them change the assets for you.
Reskin it for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
like you said, when the whole gold rush for the iOS and all that came out, I saw a lot of non-game developers get in the game development because they thought it was like a business that they could do, and it's part of the reason why we're where we're at. Because there's dudes that are literally just paying $1,000 for a reskin of a game just to upload to the App Store and see what happens.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's crazy industry that you got to navigate these days.
No doubt. So what's next for you in terms of, is your current focus on the game you're publishing next? Are you first and foremost primary on the community growth? What's your current kind of thing you got your lasers on?
I would say the community growth is probably number one. YouTube seems to be really good for that. I've had more signups from YouTube in the past 90 days than I've had the past couple of years. So It's worked out. Yeah, it's working out. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. We're building definitely tool sets for press communication, YouTuber, streamer communication, and all that kind of stuff to kind of enable developers to contact with these guys, but in a way that's not spammy and
right.
That's my primary focus. I'm also going to continue to share the things that I've learned. I'm working on a book. I'm working on a couple different things to kind of help push this stuff out there and hopefully make a difference in some lives.
Yeah, helping people.
That's what's important.
That's
right?
The best.
If I'm not helping people, I feel like something's wrong in my life. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Honestly, I don't think I've ever said this publicly, but one of my goals with YouTube is I want to have more watch time than my entire life.
Nice.
So it's like 24 million something minutes at this point, which is my goal. I'm not quite close to that yet, but I feel like that is like an emotional like goal for me to kind of get past the point where I have impacted more people through the stuff that I put out than minutes I've actually lived in my life. So
yeah. I feel like you're a net positive in some like maybe like really corruptibly objective way to put it
in the universe somehow, but I made more impact on other people's lives.
Done more good than harm.
Yeah, like
somehow.
I mean, and I think that's what it's about. I just want to help people. And I noticed that like the more I grow and the more people that I help, the more motivated I am to do this. And like at some point it's probably going to become unsustainable. So there is going to be some kind of monetization somewhere, somehow. And that's a good thing, but I think a lot of the stuff that I'm experiencing is stuff that I've never had to experience before. Like I was really miserable with doing marketing for products I didn't want to do and all that stuff. So learning to do this and really live to help people and do this, I think it's a great experience for me. And it's something that I think everybody should do because it's so rewarding. It's so much more rewarding than any other kind of work I've ever done in my life.
And speaking of both rewarding, and you kind of brought up the point again of the difficulty of marketing something you don't feel good about. And I think this is one of the keys to both of us kind of having our own business. As to like when I'm in a YouTube video or email or anything else, like mentioning this thing that I do, it's not because I'm a salesperson, I've been handed this product, I'm on a mercenary's mission to try to push this on you. It's like, I'm an educator, I've gone out of my way to design this because it fits the approach that I found helps people, and I can very comfortably push that forward into the world as being like, this is doing good, and more people I can get to be involved with this and understand what this is and use it and so on. And the same way as to like with the fact that you now have control over the way you're doing your thing, if you weren't feeling good about it, you could adjust what it is you're doing to feel good about it. And I think part of it like is when people talk about like the grind or things jading them or whatever, it's when the work situation winds up putting them in a spot where they feel like they're a cog in the machine of something that they wouldn't feel right about building otherwise, or they're promoting something that it's not how they would do it. And I think there's a lot of value in that, like more than money, perhaps even like meaning in it and feeling right about this is the approach that's right to take or whatever.
Absolutely. I think your intention really matters too, because I've seen, like, especially in the marketing space, there's a lot of people that start with the monetization first. Like they say, oh, the indie game developers are an audience and I want to target them for a product, versus starting with trying to help, and trying to really like make a difference. And I think you learn more just by, like, I've learned so much about myself and about the struggles that people have just by putting out content every day and kind of like listening to the comments, listening to the questions, listening to the things that people have to say. And I've been working on a book since 2013, and it's been like kind of like I released an ebook version back then, but now it's kind of turned into a full-scale book because there's so much there. And that book is like the result of thousands of comments and emails and interactions and meetings and like questions that I get all the time about people from all walks of life and all different versions of like where they're at. And that kind of stuff, I think you can tell the difference between something that's just being pushed for the sake of a product, you know, like it's got a different vibe to it. That's one of the reasons why I love watching your YouTube channel. Watch his YouTube channel, subscribe. No, but for real, like when I watch your YouTube, I get the vibe that you are a dude that legitimately wants to help. Like I can't even pinpoint why that is, you know, but it's just the vibe that I get. I've watched other YouTube channels where I don't get that vibe at all. And it's not like they may have good content, but I don't feel like I have the same like desire or even relationship with the dudes that don't feel that way.
Yeah. I know
you can tell.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I think sometimes people mistakenly look at like, oh, I have traffic numbers or I have subscriber numbers or followers or whatever, and assume that translates to like, I am loaded somehow. I am super not. There are lots of compromises and trade-offs in order to like feel morally sound about how I'm doing, what I'm doing. And it's not that I'm not charging for things. Obviously, this is a business. I run a business. I do pay my bills from what I do. But it's at a level at which like I've got peers, so when I was spent my stint in academia, I have now met professors from multiple continents, multiple institutions, multiple styles of who basically said like, I feel guilty for being involved in the university system related to game development. That the amount that they charge, they leave people in debt, the amount that they're able to deliver on, the job realities they're facing, whether or not even the chance of them getting a job from it, or the chance that they're going to like do a year or two of it and be like, I actually hate what this is, and then quit, etc. Is just vastly different from like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to teach it like it's guitar lessons, and we're going to practice it, and you can keep your day job and charge a whole lot less so it fits in the budget, etc. It was like this thing that to me was like, this makes sense, and in no way could justify a 35,000 person institution with acres and acres of land to garden and building infrastructures and whatever, but is ultimately when I felt like I had to do. Like I didn't want to be a part of those things where I feel like I don't feel right about people being fed into my meat grinder.
Dude, I went the same thing with marketing company. Like I would get clients that would pay me a lot of money to market things that I didn't believe in. And so I'm at a conflict of interest at that point. Either I choose to convince people to buy this thing I don't believe in to make money, or I don't make money.
Right.
So that's a bad position to be in. And I think doing something like this, what I've seen so much is just the impact on people. Like it is, I have this little folder that I keep track of every good thing that someone says to me. If they send me an email or whatever, I take a little screenshot of it, I put it in there, because it's like, that's what makes this worth it. Like this, if I was looking at like, I've sold a company, I've built multiple startups, I've done consulting, I've done freelance, if I wanted to start a legitimate company, I doubt this would be the route that I would take. Legitimately, like it's not, I mean, this is not the way to make $1 billion company and, you know, sell it to Google or something.
Yeah. And it's part of why, and I feel maybe, I hope I don't regret sometimes saying this. It's also why why I don't take outside investment in my business, etc. Cause like, I don't think you should put your money on what I'm doing. Like, I think I can manage this like at least mom and pop level sustainable, and I am. Right. But that my goal is not to become a unicorn or whatever kind of business that like explosive, growth beyond the curve and obliterate competition and go, golly, the extent to which like the startup world now is run by businesses that go literally $3 billion a year into debt to just shave off any possible competition is just staggering. And I think some people don't realize like in the games market space, sometimes that still kind of happens. I've heard people talk about how like some of the top leaders in the boards, and obviously this is not indies, this is heavy hitters who have the kind of real capital behind them, will literally buy up advertising, keywords, etc. that they know their competitors are trying to use to drive up the cost of bidding on those, because that's business and they can afford to do it. And long term, that's their revenue machine. And like,
that was never something I wanted to do. And honestly, even with my startups, I never liked taking someone else's money, because I always felt like led in certain directions. And like I said, it comes out in your videos that you have that kind of power, that you don't take outside capital, that this stuff is more important to you than that. Like it's very clear. And it's one of the reasons why like I love your channel so much versus like other channels. Because no, but for real though. And like same thing, like it's motivating to work with people and change lives and help people, especially something like games, which is a very passionate driven industry. Like if someone that didn't think they could make a video game, if you show them how, they're like so grateful,
right?
You know, like you changed their life.
It's so empowering.
It is. Yeah. It's because it seems like like when I was a little kid and I played the first Halo, sitting down. I had to save up for months to buy my Xbox, and I had to save up for another month after I bought my Xbox to buy my first game, which was Halo 1, because I didn't have any games, and I had to sit with an Xbox with just a demo disc. And when I played Halo, I was like, I had no idea how games worked.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I might have to code every frame of the screen and do all that, but I was like, you know what? This inspired me so much. I want to make games.
Yeah.
And when I got into it and I started working on stuff, I was like, for the first time when I got that little feeling of maybe I can do this, like, it changed who I was. It changed the course of like my entire history, right? Because that feeling was so empowering. It was so like amazing. And if I can help people get that feeling like more often or faster or better or, you know, just on a larger scale, I'm all about it, because I think it's a great feeling. Everybody should feel that way. Everybody should be able to take what's in their head and create this experience to show people how they feel, you know, like whatever it is. So yeah, I think the world needs more indie games, and that's my mission in life. And I hope one day on my deathbed I can look back and say, these people made so many more indie games because of the things that I contributed.
Seems like you're already doing it. And again, I think one way to think about that is that, like, I like to phrase it like more games that aren't half finished. More games that, like, you help. And even if somebody, like, they've already started the thing, and it's not like you're trying to take full credit for, like, aha, I'm why they finished, but that, like, it genuinely helped them see a path between, like, where they would have, like, stalled out midway and been like, now what? And now can see, like, there's a place to put this. There's a way forward. There's some steps I can follow. I can feel like I'm not being negligent on knowing nothing about marketing, etc. And, like, give it, you know, that honest try.
I noticed that, like when I made this stuff on marketing, when I made the videos of marketing, what I didn't realize was that if someone could watch that series and then believe that they knew enough about marketing to market their game, that would encourage them to actually finish their game. Yep. I didn't even think of that, but I got tons of comments and messages and emails and all kinds of stuff like that. Like, for the first time I feel like this is possible. And it's like, wow, that's cool. That's empowering. That's awesome. I want to spread that to more people. You know?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Sweet. Excellent. But did I hear correctly, is the community currently totally free? Is it non-monetized? Completely
free. There's nothing to buy. I'm going to have a book coming out soon. I'm not sure on the date. But we got to figure all those details out. Actually, I have a video coming out tomorrow where I'm getting everybody's feedback. So it's actually going to be like a community built thing too.
Nice.
But other than that, no, I'm about mission first. We'll figure out what's valuable and how I can help people.
Right. Get the eyeballs, get the feedback.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Prove something works.
Absolutely.
Yep. Rock on.
It's fun.
Well, sweet. Yeah, I guess. And aside from that, any other stuff we want to squeeze in? I guess it's already been pretty long, but I don't know.
Yeah, we've went a little long. Definitely, if you're not subscribed to Chris's channel, make sure you do that, because it's amazing content. It's awesome. I love watching it.
And what's the name of your channel?
Game Dev Underground.
Game Dev Underground. Okay, and both your community and the online YouTube channel is both that name.
The URL to the website is gdu.io.
gdu.io. Rock on.
So it's super simple.
Gotcha. And my stuff is all Gamkedo everywhere, with no E in the middle. It's not Gamekedo. Gamkedo. Yeah.
I actually was wondering, like, how do you pronounce that? But okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It works.
Yep. Alrighty. Well, sweet. Good chatting. I guess anytime, send emails, we'll message, we'll figure out stuff. We get to work together on something more than just the YouTube video or audio podcast or whatnot.
Totally, man. I appreciate you doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Music at the start and end of this podcast is provided by Danny Baranowski. Use with permission.